Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Before I get into this video, I'd like to ask you all to please leave a like or comment on my video and consider subscribing to my channel. Now, today's video is going to be on the Naga Battlecruiser. Now, the Naga Battlecruiser is part of the Assault class battlecruisers, and one thing to note about the ship is it's more like a mini battleship than a heavy assault battlecruiser. The reason why I'm calling it a mini battleship is it runs large weapon systems. Now, with the large weapon systems being used on it, it has advantages to the weapon systems. Minus 95% large railgun power grid need means that they run at a very low cost on this particular ship. They also have a minus 50% capacitor need, meaning that massive drain from the regular weapons is only 50% as prominent as it would normally be, making it like running medium weapons on the ship. Actually, it runs even more efficient than medium weapons. So let's get into this and let's have a quick look at it so that you can have a good idea of how this ship works. Now, for every advanced engineering level, you get 5% 5% railgun damage and plus 5% optimal range. Obviously, if you're building the ship, you're only using large. If you're using medium weapons on the ship, you aren't getting any bonus, you aren't getting any extra power. This ship is literally meant for large weapons. You can run your standard battlecruiser fit on it, but you will see that I have a special fit on it, and there are multiple alternations that I give for the low slot and the engineering part of the rigs. So as you can see, it's 6 weapons, 1 drone, 3 mid, 5 low slot, and a 3x3 in rigs, 3 combat, 3 engineering. Now, moving on, for every command bonus level in advance, you get 5% velocity to the ship. So that means if you have your full advanced command bonus, you get 25%. If you have full engineering and command bonus, which is a possibility, you will have a very powerful ship. 25% extra damage plus 25% optimal range. This ship is going to be a beast for you. You're going to be able to use it very well in combat. Now, here are a few things to note about everything that you're going to be doing. If you are running this in solo combat, your rigging is going to be slightly different from if you are running it in a fleet. If you are running it in a fleet, obviously you're counting on the fleet to cover some of your weaknesses. The ship does have a very big weakness. I'll explain it in a second. And it has a minus 4% signature radius. So in a fleet, this ship is highly unlikely to be the first ship to be targeted. It's going to give off a very small signature radius, especially if you have enough research into its command. That's going to be a minus 20% signature radius. Makes it very tiny, means using something like a micro warp drive will just keep it in the regular range of battle cruiser. Okay, let's move on. It has a 25,901 defense. That's basically a 26,000 defense. Majority of it is in shields. This is a Caldari vessel, so shields. I will show you in a few seconds what's inside the power grid, but I am also going to come back right after I do my entire fit up to show you exactly why I'm giving you certain options, because some people do tend to criticize the way in which I build ships, and I will explain things a little bit more in detail in this video. Now, it has a 1024 megawatt power grid. If you extend it with your standard research, if you have done it for the levels on the ship, you have 37 extra levels to add to the ship. The 0.5 I'm just going to omit from the entire calculation, and 37% of 1000 is 370. Now, you do have slightly more than 370, so I'm going to say you have a 1395 megawatt power grid. Now, that is your standard with just your engineering being added, no rigs being added to the grid. Now, your capacitor is 3171 gigajoules, Once more, you add that 37% to this. 37% of 1,000 is, as I said, 370. You're going to times it by 3. That gives you just over 1,000. So you're just outside of the 4,000 mark. You're around 4,250 megawatts on the 4,250 gigajoules on the system. You have a 1,150 cubic meter cargo hold, the same as some of the battleships that we have available. Now, the ship, in terms of market price, I'm just going to open it out. It is very cheap at the moment. Here is everything that you need to know about the ship besides this. This ship is an expert for Garista space. So if you are someone who is in a Garista situation where you're trying to beat the Garista anomalies as fast as possible, use the Naga. The Naga is going to be the best for you. Another thing to know, don't try and shield tank the assault vessels. In their name, it says they are assault. Now, when I say don't try to shield tank them, I mean, don't try and put all of your rigs in shielding, because if all your rigs are in shielding, you don't have its optimal output. And if all your rigs are in assault, if you are in the right type of a team, if you're always going to be running with the Guardian, so forth, you don't have to worry about the rigs that run with your ship. But I am going to rig it so that you can have it slightly in smaller teams without a Guardian helping you. Okay, so let's go down into the weapons for this ship. Now, the railguns. Now, you have two options in terms of railguns. You have the popped railguns, which are going to be your large railguns. Sorry, I'm making a mistake. Rifled railguns. I make a lot of mistakes, I do know that. And as you can see, it's a 903 megawatt requirement. However, this ship reduces it by 95%. That means that this ship runs at just near 45 megawatts per weapon. It runs a total of 6, so 90 for 270 megawatts for the full 6 weapons on the ship. And a minus 50% to its usage per weapon. That means it's 18.9 gigajoules which it uses, which is 19, you can say is 18.5. Double it over, that's going to give you it's going to give you 19 again, times it by 3, and there you go. 60 gigajoules per activation once every 5 seconds. So 60 gigajoules every 5 seconds, it isn't a very heavy weapon system for you to run with. There you go, it's not too bad. You're running safe, you're still fine. And then we have the other option for the Brawler. Brawler is a very good option with the ship, and I will explain the Brawler fit. You can use your snub-nose railgun. Now, please note on this, the snub-nose railgun is a little bit less heavy in terms of power grid. It's also less heavy in terms of gigajoules per second. Now, when you do this here, you're going to go 800. You're going to reduce it all the way down. So reduce it by 100. That will give you 8.16. Times it by 5. That's going to give you just near 40 megawatts per weapon. When you times it by the total of 6, it's going to give you just near 240 megawatts for this complete system on the ship. Now remember, you have almost a 1,400 gigajoule system, so you do have quite a lot of system to run with. You have 1,100 almost to complete your ship with. 1,100 means you have a lot of room on your ship. There's a lot of things you can go and slot in here and there and everywhere to get a fantastic battle cruiser. Okay, so there we go. We just took out the railguns, and you understand the requirement. It's a 15 gigajoule. You can times it by 3. That's 45 gigajoules every 5 seconds, making it very, very light on the power grid once more. Considering your large size power grid with that massive extension, your recharge is going to go up quite a bit. It's going to go up with that 35%. So you're going to have a larger recharge per second. And I will explain a few things when it comes to rigs and why you can still use certain rigs to get your optimal effect. Now, your drone, you're going to go standard medium drones. You are going to either go Hammerhead or you are going to go Vesper. Now, Hammerhead and Vesper are the best because they have the all-round best damage types. You could go EM and take out the shield very quickly. However, it's not going to help you in terms of armor. You could go explosive. It won't help you with the shield. It will help you with armor. Those are the things you have to eliminate. So if you eliminate those two, you're left with Vesper and Hammerhead. Hammerhead has a slight advantage in overall damage. Vesper has slightly lower damage overall because of the fact that the resistances add up heavier on terms of its particular damage type. So let's move on to the next thing. Now, depending on your fit-up, if you are running Brawler, there's a chance for you to use Nosferatu. If you are running full-scale assault, that means long-range assault, you're pulling yourself back out of the fight, you can run standard electronic warfare. Now, if you are running Brawler, you will run a Web of Fire. Right, Web of Fire is to always pull off that small ship that's irritating you so you can destroy it in an instant. If you double Web of Fire, it's instant death to anything that's that small. Remember, you have quite a lot of bonuses coming in for your effective speed. You're starting off at 180. You're adding 37% extra speed to your ship because of advanced command. You are then also adding to it other speed boosts and bonuses from your rigs, which I will explain later, and that's going to get you up to just near 240, 250 meters per second. You could even be going at 280 meters per second. That's all dependent on your engineering. Sorry, your skills. Now, if you are running double webs, that is good for you. You can actually take it out. PvP format for the ship, I'm not a master of PvP. Yes, I do make a few good PvP builds. I know that one or two of you have been asking me for PvP builds. I'm not going to give PvP builds. The reason why I'm not giving PvP builds is I'm making you a pure person versus person build. The person versus person build requires you to play 1v1. It won't work for you in 1v many. In terms of 1 versus many, you're going to run with low DPS and heavy shield. It ruins the whole effect of you taking on the fight. I can't think around it. Unfortunately, that is my box of thought when it comes to PvP. That's one of the reasons why you won't hear me saying this is the perfect PvP build. PvE builds I'm quite adept with. I understand how to play them around because the enemies are very fixed and it's very easy to work around them. Now, if you are running in this particular class, remember this is a Garista weapon type fighter, so you can use guidance disruptors and target painters. If you are running long range, guidance disruptors will stop the enemies from hitting you, and you can use a target painter so you can be more efficient on them. However, if you are running Brawler, a stasis web of fire, you can still use a guidance disruptor to reduce damage that you're taking, and on top of that, stasis web of fire, guidance disruptor, and a target painter. That will give you the perfect little mid-slot combination, and that will allow you to do a lot of damage to ships. Now we have only completed the mid-slot. Now going on, there is the other option of double Nosferatu. Now double Nosferatu will allow you to run a little bit safer on your capacitor if you are going for that option. It will be double Nos and one web. You aren't going to be able to run anything else. That is going to be your mid-slot complete. Now, if you are running the double web and Nosferatu, here's a few things for you to note on that entire build. Only Brawler, only Snub Nose. I don't know of a build where you can use it in long range because you don't get the right range. You can't use the large Nosferatu if you're going with my build, because a large Nosferatu will damage the entire stability of my build. You'll see why in a second. Okay, so now we finally enter into the king of your build, the low slot. The low slot makes your upper part of your build. Now, there are 3 pieces to this build that are, okay, actually there's 2 pieces that are stable. They won't be changed no matter what. All the other fittings, all the other slots will alternate. So the first thing we're going to do is a shield booster. Now moving all the way down to large, we have the Latchio Booster at 502 megawatts. It gives you 914 per boost. This is massive. This will keep you stable in most fights. This is like adding a shield extender every single time you need it. However, the massive cost to this is 455 gigajoules on the power requirement. So yes, you can do this here. It's like activating a shield extender every time you end up taking damage. It is a good enough way to play this. 502 megawatts will knock out quite a bit from that power grid. As I said, the Nosferatu isn't part of my primary build. It is something which I would consider more on the secondary. If you did go double Nosferatu, you knocked out 150 megawatts from your grid. You have 1,000 megawatts to build your low slot. So be very careful about it. And remember that you have a slightly different requirement. In order to run the double Nosferatu, it would also be advised for you to have expert battle cruiser engineering. Remember, these battle cruisers are very effective against battleships. If you are running Nagas, Oracles, Tornadoes, and Talos against a Rattlesnake, Balgorn, a Vindicator, you can do a lot of damage. And if you are in the right composition of a fleet, you can beat them. Right now, obviously 1v1, most of those big ships are going to tear you to pieces. That is just the way that it goes. So the first thing that goes on is a shield booster. The second thing is a shield hardener. Now you're going to go C-type shield hardener, and that is going to give you your maximum output. With this on your system, you are feeling very safe. You have that 30,000 SP, 30,000 HP to boost you up, if it's 33,000 if I'm correct. But that is where you are sitting in terms of overall HP. Now moving on from this is where things start to alternate. If you are running Brawler, you need a little bit more shield. Obviously, a little bit more shield, you could put a medium shield booster, a medium shield extender. It will give you a quick boost once every few seconds. This is a very good idea. I'm actually going to say that it would be a very good idea. As you can see, it takes 594 gigajoules and it can only be activated once every 60 seconds. It gives you 2,358 increased shield. However, this is a temporary shield to your ship. If you want a better solution, I would say you sacrifice your power grid with the 502 megawatt edition of a second shield booster. If you follow my build, the next part of what I'm about to say will make this here a lot more abundantly clear as to why I am saying that this is a very good idea. Now, you will notice that your capacitor need on the ship is ridiculously high. The capacitor need is so heavy, it can literally cripple your ship. Obviously, running something like a shield booster reduction by 15% would help you tremendously. It is an option, but I wouldn't suggest it because it's an assault class vessel. You don't really need to worry about that so much. You're going to go double shield booster. Right now, you could go shield extender. And the other option for the third slot is a cap battery. Now, why a cap battery? Well, it's quite simple. You want to extend the amount of capacitor you have. You want to increase your recharge during that small period of time. So yeah, it is an option, but it's not really part of my build. It is a total optional piece. If you do put in the cap battery, everything changes around you. Now, this third slot is the very open one. As I said, it's a shield extender, shield booster, a cap battery. There are other options. You'll hear them as we go along. Okay, moving on to the next part of this build. Micro warp drive. This is an optional one. If you are using long range, the micro warp drive will help you. You're going to use it to get yourself out of the standard range of fighting. This is the whole idea behind it, to pull you out of the front. So one micro warp drive added to the ship. Remember, you've already hit that power grid really heavy. This is 167 megawatts. That leaves your remaining power grid to a tiny little smidgen at the end. Now, the micro warp drive is not suggested for the Brawler fit. Remember, if you are going with this, if you're going with the shield boost, if you're going with the shield extender, the micro warp drive doesn't even hurt you. It's a fantastic addition to the ship. If you are going with the double shield booster because you want the permanent shield added in, you literally can't run micro warp drive. You are forced to stay up front in the heart of combat. Alright, so that is something that I did explain there. Now moving on, the next thing to note is weapon upgrades. Now you're going to go magnetic field stabilizer. Now the magnetic field stabilizer increases your firing time. Remember, you have 5 seconds And as you can see, it's only 7 megawatts. So even if you went with the micro warp drive and the double shield boosters, this was an option. Now if you went with the micro warp drive, you will double magnetic field boost. Now yes, I know this isn't the best way to do it, but the reason for it is quite simple. You want a total of 40 seconds of firepower. Reducing your 5 seconds even by that activation time bonus, it's going to reduce you by quite a bit. You might come down by just a little bit. You might get 5 shots in a second per railgun, per activation. So 5 for the first one, 5 for the second one. That's a total of 10 shots from your ship. The DPS is really, really high. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit choked up. Now, if you didn't go with the micro warp drive, this was your 4th slot on the grid, right? So if you, sorry, I am making a mistake. If you did go with the micro warp drive, this was the end of your build. You only have one stabilizer. Sorry about that, there was a mistake. If you didn't go with the micro warp drive, you still have one more slot to go, and that is going to be an Eagle tracking computer. Now I'm going to explain everything in a few seconds, and the Eagle tracking computer requires 126 megawatts. So this is once more closing up that little gap. You have a small amount of your capacitor, your power grid left. Your capacitor is really heavily being used, and this is where the whole fit up comes into play. So let me start explaining it bit by bit. Now if you went with snub nose railguns, so the Brawler fit, double shield booster would be the best fit for you because you need that close range combat style. Now if you are going Brawler fit, I suggest that you always have a second member as part of your team. It can be a guardian or it can be someone else. It's preferable that it's someone who has a longer range attack because you want to be able to chase the fast moving opponents. Okay, right, now I'm actually doing the build compilation first. So the snub nose railguns, they have that capacity. You have your drone with it. Your drone is going to be in complete usage throughout the fight. Now overall your DPS from those 6 is going to look somewhere near, one moment, let me just go look at the DPS on these weapons. I'm sorry about that, I'm not really very good with my railguns. I have a tendency to forget how good they are. $54.74. Now obviously with your research it's going to go up, it's going to become bigger. With your fittings that are added in, you're getting a bonus of 5% to the power, so you do have a little bit more DPS coming in. You are running at around 75 on average per large railgun. 75 times 6, it's going to get you up quite a big amount. That's 150 times 3. That's about 450 DPS coming straight off your railguns before rigs, right? I haven't touched rigs. There's the damage bonuses, everything coming in from your command. That's also not yet added to this entire fit up. So you're around 25% extra. You're going to reach the 550 mark with all of this being added in. That gives you a nice solid chunk of DPS. Remember, you're hitting for a nice chunk every 5 seconds. Your tracking isn't the best with this weapon. But if you were running snubs, now snubs is a different story altogether. They're higher DPS if I am correct. There you go. You're already at 75. Once you add in all the bonuses, you're almost at 100. So that's about 600 DPS from the ship with just your standard fit up of your rigs. Once you add in everything from the ship, it's going over the top. You are going past the 600 mark. You might even breach 700. I'm not 100% sure about that, but this is just your standard research into large railguns. If you don't have research into the large railguns, there was no use in you building up the ship. Sorry about that. So yeah, there you go. Those are the things that you are fitting onto the ship to give you that nice solid chunk of damage when you are going into battle. Now moving on, let's talk about the rest of the fit up. So if you are running the close range, you are running a web of fire, a guidance disruptor, and a target painter. Now that's if you are running in Garista space where it is the best. If you are running it against any other space, You will take off the guidance disruptor, and your PvE fit will change depending on whether you are facing any other opponent. You could always run a tracking disruptor in that slot to reduce the amount of damage you take from big ships. This is purely in there to take care of battleships. Understand you want to keep the damage off you because they can really hurt your shields, and you don't want to run your shield booster too consistently. You will only activate your shield booster once you drop more than 10%. If you drop more than 20%, then you will activate both. If you are in a heavy combat situation, you will only activate both one time every 20 seconds, because if you activate it any faster, your power grid will drop so fast it's like your power grid never existed. It will take away a lot of power from you very quickly. A double activation will take out more than 25% of your cap. So there is the big warning on this here. Don't ever try to go too heavy with the double shield booster system. The railguns will always work very well with double shield booster and a shield hardener. It's going to give you quite a bit of tank to your ship, and you're going to have that maximum output of firepower. Now let's move on to the next part of the ship, and let's say what else is going to be put in for you. Now with this first part being that big heavy destructive section that you have added in, let's go to a lower part of the ship that's going to be okay, so we've discussed the mid slot. That's all going to be for the snub nose. The last two effects in your snub nose railgun, with your snub nose railgun fitting, you could always add in your low slots the magnetic field stabilizer and the eagle tracking computer. This is going to give you the best amount of range for your ship. It's going to give you a heavy firepower in the close range. It's going to allow you to melt enemies right up front. You could always switch out the tracking computer for double magnetic fields. It isn't the very best to do. You want that tracking computer to give you a little bit of range to take out those annoying ships that try to run away from you, and any battleship that's too far out and that you can't catch. So that is the whole idea behind running the eagle tracking computer. You need that bonus to get your range up quite a bit. Now, if you were running the opposite with rifle railguns, your fit up won't have the double shield booster. It's standard, you're not going to run double shield booster. You're going to be running the micro warp drive and you're going to be running micro warp drive, shield extender, and one magnetic field stabilizer. If you don't run the magnetic field stabilizer, if you don't run the shield extender, you can run the tracking computer. This is where that whole switch in the way that it works. Because you're only going to take damage for a small part, and then you're going to take a nice large orbit at around 60 to 70 kilometers, where you're in the large category of fire. That is what you want to do. That is where you want to be. You're going to only do that if you are in that category of player. Remember, research plays a big part in it. You're only doing this for that purpose. Now, those are all the fits. That's how they work out. As you can see, the Brawler fit is quite simple. You want that heavy amount of recharge. You want to keep your shield really, really strong. You don't want to lose out too much. Now, moving on from this first part, let's go down into where we're going to go with rigs. Now, rigs on the ship are very, very important. The first thing we're going to do is add in one defensive rig. If you are running Brawler, now remember, you're running 455 gigajoules per activation on those shields. You have two options. You can go core defense optimizer. This is adjustment time, You can go core defense charge economizer and add in 30% extra shield. This will reduce the number of times you're going to activate that shield. It's going to be a lot larger. You're going to be as big as the shield extender with the two activated. It's a 900 megawatt single activation. It's really, really heavy, and it really is a big thing for you to charge up on your ship. And capacitor, core defense capacitor safeguard 3, minus 25% need adjustment. Minus 20%. Minus 20% to 450 will make a massive drop to that entire requirement. The double activation will be just like adding a shield extender to your ship. It's a quick, easy one to get your shield back up quickly. It's going to recover quite a bit per each activation. Your shield is about 10,000. With your research in defense, it's most probably somewhere near 12,000. You're adding 2, so you're adding 1/6 of your shield with every activation. 1/6 of your shield at each activation, that's per shield booster. With both of them, it's a third. That's 33% instantly recovered. That is quite a bit. That is helping you keep your shield extremely stable. That means when you drop to 50, 2 of these activations will get you up to full power. It will also take out a massive chunk of your capacitor. Now, if you are running with the capacitor need reduced like this here, your need is reduced by almost 20%. So with the double reduction by 20%, it gives you a lot more of a leeway. You gain 80% more capacitor from that double activation. That's going to make it a lot better for your ship, a lot more stable. Now this is purely up to you. You can go economizer with the bigger activation. That means you only activate it once every few minutes, like every 30 seconds, every minute, so that you can recover enough power. Now already with this here being put into the system, you only can choose one. That's it, only one. You don't want to go any further. You're not going to try and optimize your capacitor any further with the weapons. You're going to go straight for damage. Now plus 17.5% damage is where you're going straight, and the last one you're going to go is the aerator. And the Railgun Aerator 3 is purely to make you fire quicker. Now why do you want to fire quicker? You want to do more damage in a shorter period of time. It's going to now increase your DPS. So if you were doing that 75, instantly with this you are now going to almost 100. So that's 600. Then you're adding bonuses of 25%. You through the roof already. You are all the way through. You have 125% extra damage added. You're at 725. Then you are now going to add other things to the ship's bonuses, like your magnetic field. That's going to improve it even more by a 5%. You have almost 750 DPS from that ship. It's a massive hit for each one of those hits. Remember, it's actually times 5. That's what the hit is like from the ship, and that is really going to cripple players. Almost 4,500 to 5,000 per hit from the ship in 5 seconds. So 2 of them is almost 9,000. You're beating just about any missile system in the medium class. Very, very big hits, very, very quick firing. That's what you want from a heavy assault. Now, those are the two put together. You're going to have a quicker fire with more DPS, and this is going to give you that super advantage. And these two are your best matches for putting it into your ship. Remember, your shield is the one where you have the option. I would generally go with the optimizer over taking out the capacitor need. The capacitor need means that you still will need 4 activations for the shield to be completely recharged. It does make a big difference when it comes to your entire need for the ship. You can run 1 extra activation of the shields. It can be activated more than 10 times from scratch. So yes, it does make a big difference to your ship. Now those were your combat rigs. Let's get straight into engineering, your navigation rigs. 1 auxiliary thruster. Now why do you want an auxiliary thruster? The more speed you have, the more damage you negate. If you take less damage by default, it means that your ship is more stable. You don't have to worry about running your capacitor so much for shield recovery. There you go, a nice big boost to your overall defensive capability, a nice solid hit capability. Moving down into engineering, let's go to where we're going with the capacitors. Now this is where the big discussion starts. Please bear in mind with what I'm saying. You can run a power grid extender on the ship. Now if you run a power grid extender, you can change up your entire fit. I'm not going for a power grid extender. It is purely up to you. I would suggest you do advanced engineering on your battle cruiser over going for the power grid extender. So yes, it does give you a little bit more power. A little bit more power in terms of this here can change up what you're putting on the ship. And what I mean by change up what you're putting, you can go with the micro warp drive with the Brawler fit that will make it a very, very fast firing ship, and you can catch things that try to run away from you quite easily. But it has a negative effect because it takes out part of your power grid, and your power grid is needed to keep yourself with the double shield extender, with the double shield wraps. You'd have to go economizer, not economizer, you'd have to go capacitor safeguard in that place. So there is something to note. Whoa. Okay, now the general aspect you're going to go with is a semiconductor control. If you go double semiconductor control, you increase the size of your capacitor by quite a lot. That's almost a 40% increase. It's actually more because you add one and then the second one is added on top of it. So you have a very large power grid. You're almost at 6,000 megawatts on this particular ship. That means that you can run a lot more shield recovery with the optimizer or the capacitor safeguard. That is one of the best ways to run the ship. It makes it very, very stable and very, very hard. It makes it feel like a shield tank without it actually being a shield tank. The other option is to run one semiconductor control and one capacitor control circuit. Now, I did say that I'm going back to the ship to explain this to you. And the reason why this is still a very good way to play it on the ships. Now, remember, once you drop below 30%, your recovery becomes very, very slow. So you don't actually do this optimal level of recovery. You only do the time. So it's various amounts of recovery and you move through it at different rates. So you drop to the lowest possible rate at that last 30%. Now, if you reduce your time by 10%, it reduces this entire ship's recovery to just under 500 seconds, 490 seconds. There is 45 seconds less to the recovery time, and with your power grid being just 4,000, this recovery amount becomes slightly bigger. Now, once you have everything added in, if you're going double semiconductor control, you will be somewhere near 18 or 19. However, during the lower part of your grid, your recovery rate is really, really small. If you do use the capacitor control circuit, even though you don't have as much capacitor to regain, your recharge pace is a lot more increased. So in that emergency situation, you have a chance to recover a lot more capacitor. I've done the double semiconductor control. It is no good against enemies who drain you, but against enemies who do drain you, when you're running capacitor control circuits, when they drop you into that last 20%, you have a chance to recover if you deploy cap battery, if you deploy anything else to save that last 30%. It does help you recover quicker. It makes the recovery time a lot faster. So that is why you want to run a capacitor control circuit. If you aren't really running into that much of neutralizers and Nosferatu in the encounters, you will then run obviously double semiconductor control to give you that massive capacitor at your disposal. Remember, if you run micro warp drive, you have to run double semiconductor control. Otherwise, your entire ability to run regen is out of there, because you have that massive drain to your system and you've already negated the effects from your engineering. So yeah, that is the big horrible thing to think about when it comes to using large components. And that's why I say this is a mini battleship and not a battle cruiser. So that is what you're going to do. That is what you're going to need on the ship. And if I am correct with everything put together, in a snub-nose railgun formation, you will be doing easily 800 DPS per second. Every 4 seconds is going to be a discharge from your ship. So 800 times 4, that's going to be 3,200 per hit. And every 10 seconds, it's going to be quite a large hit in comparison to the regular. When you activate your weapons, your weapon systems like your magnetic field, your fire time is going to go all the way down to just near 4 point something seconds. So not 4 point something seconds, to just under 4 seconds. So you might get up to 5 shots out of that capacitor, and it will be increasing your DPS for that short period of time by a considerable amount. So yes, it does help you a lot in battle. With those massive hits, nobody can really recover as fast as the large shield boosters would recover them, because 3000 is more than 3 instant recoveries. Whew. Okay, so that is it for the Naga. That is the entire build. I hope you have enjoyed. I've taken a lot of time to make this build. Thank you all for watching. Have a good day.